We'd like to welcome everyone to the second People's Hearing of the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride 2014, Ground Zero, Texas. With courts across the country, and in Texas in particular, determining the future for women everywhere, restricting abortion and diminishing abortion access nationally, we feel a great and urgent need for a people's hearing to bring to light the stories of real women that expose what's actually at stake in this battle for reproductive control.
Hello. We want to welcome everyone who is in attendance today, those across the country watching the webcast from home. If you're here tonight, please take a minute to silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate. We don't want any interruption while stories are being told, but please feel free to tweet, to take pictures, get all these stories out there, get the message out there. These are the stories people need to hear and to understand what's at stake for women's lives today. I want to introduce my co-MC, Alex.
Thank you. And my lovely co-MC is Rain. Yeah. So we're here today with StopPatriarchy.org on the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride. We'd like to thank the Austin Center for allowing this event to go down, and hope that everyone here understands, everyone in the room and everyone watching at home, that you are part of something very important, that right now is a crucial turning point in which abortion has never been more dangerous to provide or difficult to access or stigmatized than when it became legal in this country in the 70s. Things are going to be determined very soon, one way or another, when we are in a situation where 6 states have just 1 abortion clinic left. Hundreds of restrictions have come down across abortion in recent years. What people do and do not do in this moment matters a great deal. So the first piece that we would like to introduce is a compilation of press that has come out locally in Texas, in Houston, and in Austin, much like this in the Austin Statesman, that has declared that women need access to abortion on demand and without apology. And people who have been spreading this through social media, people who are watching from home tonight, and people who are here today should understand that this is not the argument that's been being made society-wide. And what this project is aiming for is society-wide impact. If you have been part of spreading this message, and if you're part of this tonight, you're part of telling the whole truth about abortion, which is exactly what people need to hear to be emboldened to fight this thing through so that women have unrestricted access to abortion across the country and without any kind of stigma or shame. So if you would go ahead and play the video that shows the press from August 4th as HB2 is being challenged, the anti-abortion bill is being challenged by heroic abortion providers.
A large crowd had gathered as arguments began in the second lawsuit against a controversial abortion law that was passed during the last state legislative session. Fox 7's Rudy Koski joins us with details on that. Rudy?
They came holding banners, crosses, coat hangers, and in chains.
This is happening across the nation.
Pro and anti-abortion supporters faced off Monday morning in front of Austin's federal courthouse.
Abortion on demand and without apologies.
Part political rally.
We ask you to bind the abortion power over Austin, Texas.
Part church revival. The conflicting voices were equally passionate.
Are you going to take a stand in this crucial moment?
Already women are forcing, they're self-inducing out of desperation, because if you are forced to bring a child to term that you do not want, you have no control over your body, over your reproduction, over the course of your life, and it is a form of enslavement.
The trial is expected to wrap up by Thursday.
was lost.
A sea of blue shirts filled the federal courthouse lawn Monday.
And so this morning we pray.
The group is in favor of the stricter abortion regulations that state lawmakers passed last summer and gathered Monday to pray all parts of the law remain in place. Meanwhile, those orange shirts were back to protest the law.
Abortion is one of the safest procedures. It's 10 times safer than childbirth.
At issue, and the possibilities of this law fully moving forward,
The right to decide for themselves.
is what will continue to bring these groups out to speak up.
Represent the terror enacted against women. The best thing or the worst thing that can happen to a woman is to get pregnant and have a child. It's an outdated notion that every woman wants to be a mother and that she is somehow selfish if she chooses not to be. We are uniting with everyone and anyone who wants to stand up against the clinic closures, stand up against the hundreds of restrictions being passed nationwide, stand up against HB2 passed here in Texas, and stand up against a program that ultimately represents forced motherhood and female enslavement.
And without these doctors who provide abortions, women, countless numbers of women would not be here today.
We're talking light against darkness. We don't need to hide from that.
What you all are standing for is the hatred of women. It's diminishing women to not being full human beings. And it is being responsible for the murder of women.
There's probably pro-life people out there that have hate and that they hate the other side. They hate women that kill their children and they hate doctors that perform abortions, but it has nothing to do with hating women. I don't hate women. I mean, that's absolutely so far off the mark, at least for me. And it's not about the women. It's just about what is right and wrong. That is all.
The only reason that a woman should be a mother is because that's what she wants to do. Some women don't give a
Both sides of the abortion debate are facing off as the trial begins over a controversial abortion regulation that takes effect next month.
Pro-abortion supporters say the new rule will force the closure of more than a dozen abortion providers in Texas. Those who want the law to stand say they may not be able to outlaw the procedure, but HB2 can help reduce how many are done.
Abortion is 10 times safer than childbirth. It's perfectly legal to have a child in your own living room, unsupervised. Abortion is very safe, and there's no need for a mini emergency room setting that's designed solely to close down clinics.
If people would like to know some more about the history of this effort, the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, it actually started last year and went through the 6 states that have one abortion clinic left. This is available online and also in the lobby here at the Austin Center. This is a Freedom Ride report from last year's project, going through those states, bringing out the message of abortion on demand and without apology, and also some background as to why that this is the strategy that's needed, just like it was in the 60s to expose and stand up against white supremacy. And now here we are in a situation headed into the concentration of the attacks on abortion, which actually is happening across the nation to stand up and expose those attacks nationwide and rally a fighting force. And I just want to emphasize one thing that was in one of these interviews, is that StopPatriarchy.org, through the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, aims to unite with anyone and everyone who wants to stand up against the clinic closures, stand up against the anti-abortion bill HB2 here in Texas, and stand up against the restrictions against abortion. This is an open project, and everyone here and everyone watching and everyone that you know is not only welcome but urgently needed at this moment to be part of mounting a national counteroffensive that aims to tell the whole truth about abortion and its effect on women's role in society, whether it's legal or not, and to not rely on the courts or the politicians, but to rely on ourselves to do that. We're breaking the silence tonight. at this people's hearing, and we will be every Wednesday in August at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're building a community. We're in this together. And right at the end of this webcast and this event, we are all, people here and people at home, going to spend the next hour to actively share and spread, call on people to come next week and to tune in, because just as Rain said, these are the stories that will not be told if we don't tell them. These are the stories that people must hear in order to understand what's at stake.
So now we're going to go on a journey from past to present to future, starting from the pre-Roe versus Wade days, the days of illegal abortion, and the coat hanger.
If there's anybody who would like to tell their story of illegal abortion, yourself or someone that you know, raise your hand, Joan. You can go ahead at any point during the event and talk to her right there. She will take down your name, take down your story. We want to make sure if somebody came here with a story tonight that they also get a chance to speak. So next we want to introduce a video testimony from a man named Jay in Houston, Texas, talking about how his mother told him when he was 11 years old how his great aunt died.
I was 11, and my mother's aunt, who would be my great aunt, and I don't recall her name, I just recall what my mother told me happened to her. And when she was pregnant for the first time, she had to go get, because it was illegal, a coat hanger abortion. She bled to death. Women today, because of what is going on in this country, in some cases, are facing the same situation. I just feel like no woman should have to die, no woman should have to go to jail, no woman should have to pay a fine, no woman should have to be harassed. They should be supported, and it should not be illegal. And I think it is a hypocrisy that most pro-life, quote, pro-life people believe that they have the right to tell a woman what to do with her body, that she doesn't have the right to have her reproductive health care. This country is heading very much in the wrong direction. And there are women today that are in serious trouble, that are being forced to having children, that are being forced to have risky, illegal operations. There will be stories such as what happened to my aunt, if there aren't already, and that are just untold. We are in serious trouble, and we have to try our best, despite the politicians that are so against women's rights, women's reproductive rights. We have to fight back. We have to protest. I admire you, and I admire you, and I admire everybody that are doing everything they can actively to help women to have the legal access, the safe access to abortions. And I think there needs to be a lot more groups like y'all.
Is this something you could see yourself participating in?
I would love to.
Now I want to introduce an activist in both the US and Mexico who fights for the rights of domestic workers throughout Texas. Her name is Araceli. Let's welcome Araceli. Okay, sorry about that. Correction. A woman named Coralie is going to read her testimony. Coralie?
Hi, my name is Coralie, and I was pregnant pre-Roe. And at that time, I was in an unstable relationship. I had a child who was very young, under 3, very small income, and I did not think that I'd be able to handle another child. And word on the street in my circle was that, well, you need an abortion, go to Mexico because it ain't illegal here. So what I wanted to, fortunately for me at that time, the father was willing to pay half of the cost. And I went to Mexico, and believe me, it was not easy because I didn't speak the language. And here I was going down there for an important procedure and didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. But I had a referral to a clinic there. I went, and the clinic was good. The nurses were very kind. They held my hand while I was going under anesthetic, which was really very touching. And the doctor was very competent. I had a little problem afterwards. You know, I wasn't the only woman there for that procedure. So what happened was these other women were younger, you know, more vibrant, I guess, you know. But anyway, all of them had gone on their way, and here I was, and the doctor was hitting me in the face saying, wake up, it's time to go, you know. And he was feeding me soup and fruit to try to get me back on my feet. Well, eventually I was able to do that. But when I came back, I thought the relationship was over, you know, and he would be on his way, and so would I. But what happened was he decided to stay. And so still in this relationship several years later, and meanwhile, Roe passed. I got pregnant again. Contraception failure, it does happen. So anyhow, I went to a local clinic at that time. Things were different. My insurance paid for it for the most part, and I was fine. But, you know, people are told such crazy stories about what abortion is. You know, it's so terrible. And I think that, you know, sometimes people are more concerned about their animals getting, you know, contraception or stuff instead of women. I mean, it's crazy that women have to be subjected to this. I don't understand, you know, like, according to many people, women's lives must be compromised to the fetus, which is crazy. I mean, she's a thinking person. The fetus don't think, and actually, contrary to popular misbeliefs, they don't have feelings. So what I'm saying is, you know, it's time for women to be respected. You know, this is a terrible, horrendous situation that women are in right now. It's an emergency. The way Texas goes, it's going to affect women all over this country. I mean, it just should not be that women have to not have access to abortion. We have the law. Why shouldn't they have access? Makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Corley. That is the truth. I want to introduce our last testimony that's going to be given by video. This is Susan Brownmiller. She's a feminist and author and activist. She was a civil rights freedom summer volunteer in the 60s, and she wants the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride Ground Zero Texas to tell her story.
My name is Susan Brownmiller. I'm the author of Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape, and several other feminist books. And I'm 79 now, but I was, for a very long time, an activist in the feminist movement. I think that a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy at any stage in her pregnancy must be assured in America and elsewhere, because there's no other way women can have self-determination as human beings if they can't decide on whether or not they want to reproduce a baby at some time. You know, it's a personal decision like everything else. I think in our culture, women are propagandized into wanting to be mothers, and some are not right for being mothers. And I think that I would never have been right, actually, to be a mother, because I had at that time, in the 60s, when abortion was illegal, before Roe v. Wade, January 1973, in the 60s, I was pretty unformed as a human being, but I knew somewhere I had ambitions, and that there was no way I could have a baby. You know, I had to find myself, and that is what I did. So I had 3 illegal abortions prior to Roe v. Wade. That's it. That was my reproductive history. It was all prior to Roe v. Wade. And I felt I could have lost my life in the looking for an appropriate provider for my second abortion. I had a lot of trouble finding someone. There's a famous doctor, there was a famous doctor in Ashland, Pennsylvania. Phone number, Ashland 404. And he was everybody's savior on the East Coast, but occasionally he had to shut down. And when I needed an abortion, his clinic was shut down. He answered the phone, and he said, I can give you a couple of recommendations, but I don't know if they're right for you. I don't know, but that's all I can do for you. The first number I called was a woman in Harlem who heard my voice and said, you know what, I don't think my procedure is right for you. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I do packing. And packing is where you put a catheter, a needle into the uterus, and you just sort of dislodge the fetus, but you go home packed with a whole lot of stuff, Modest, okay. And then eventually you expel the fetus. But she knew, hearing my voice, that really wasn't right for me. Dr. Spencer's other recommendation was a nut in Baltimore with a medical degree on the wall. And I was, of course, still under the 3-month cutoff, which in that time, was all we knew about, just 3 months. That's where technology was. He wanted me to wait a while and come back in a couple of months. He was, he could have killed me. He was experimenting with saline abortions, which I later found out were being used for 4 to 6 months fetal development. So I knew that wasn't right for me. Whatever he was saying was weird, and I ran. I ran from his office in Baltimore. Then I connected with a friend who had a friend who knew someone in San Juan. And I was given very specific instructions: just get off at the airport and just go with your overnight bag to this doctor's house. So I did that, and he opened the door. And this information was so out of date. He just stared at me and showed me his hand, and it was palsy. He said, I don't do abortions anymore. And I said, I am not going back to America unless I have an abortion. And he said, I'll give you an address. And I went to the clinic of Dr. Manuel Otero Roque, a name I will never forget. And he had a clinic for poor women in Santurce. And he also did an abortion business on the side for American young women and others. So he did that abortion, and I was eternally grateful. And I really want to say that, you know, I never experienced any emotion after an abortion other than pure relief. I was alive and healthy and no longer pregnant. It was astonishing. I don't understand this myth, this propaganda about a woman's regret. I had no regret, just relief that a condition that I didn't want inside my body was no longer there. So when I got pregnant again, yes, I know, why wasn't I taking birth control pills? They were dangerous then, I thought. Whatever. Also, I had sex infrequently, so I wasn't on any kind of protection. So when I got pregnant again, I knew where to go, right to Dr. Manuel Otero Roque. And his technique had improved so much by then. I was astonished. It was just like, he said to me, he said, "You'll be able to dance tonight." I said, "Are you kidding? The other ones left me." But he was right. I just don't know what the technique was. But I'm sure it's in use now in all the clinics here. And I thanked him very much. He suggested a price. I said, "No, the last time I only paid $350. That's all I've got with me, Dr. Otero Roque." So I came back to America, a happy person. And I wrote a lot about abortion in the old days, before Roe v. Wade and after Roe v. Wade. I wrote for the Village Voice about England that had a termination of pregnancy law a few years before we did in America. Well, anyway, I think what I want to say to young women, because for me, hey, it's no skin off my nose. I'm past my reproductive worries. I just want to say for young women that there will be no equality for women, ever, unless women have total access to procedures for termination of pregnancy for whatever reason they want. They may be carrying a late-term fetus that is horribly deformed, and they've just found out about it, and you cannot ask them, and would probably die right after birth anyway. But whatever, you cannot ask a woman to bring that fetus into the world, because it's unfair, to the child that's going to die, and it certainly is unfair to her and her partner, and who's the rest of their lives are now determined by caring for, or not caring for, or experiencing the death after a few months, of a badly deformed baby. Yeah. So I don't understand why all women don't see this, and don't understand that the only way to keep abortion safe and legal and available to all women at any stage in their pregnancy is to be an activist for abortion rights. So it's up to you, and what you're going to do about it.
So now we're going to introduce Araceli, sorry for the mix-up earlier, an activist in both the U.S. and Mexico who fights for the rights of domestic workers today throughout Texas.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Araceli y esta es mi historia. Era joven, inocente, soñadora, pobre, estudiante. Quería ser bióloga, salir de la pobreza. Un compañero de mi clase me llevó a casa de otro para hacer la tarea. Entré, me jaló bruscamente y me empujó y me gritó, no venimos a eso. Él, sus amigos me violaron.
I was young, innocent, a dreamer, poor and a student. I wanted to be a biologist to get out of poverty. And one day a male friend invited me to his home. We were going to study. He closed the door, he threw me towards the bed, and he said, "We're not here to study." And then he and several of his friends proceeded to rape me.
No le dije a mis padres, a nadie, nada. No los denuncié, porque era ignorante, inocente. No sabía que tenía derechos. Quedé embarazada. No tuve opción de elegir. Decían, está prohibido el aborto. Cargué con una herida, un hijo no planeado, no esperado.
I didn't tell my parents, nothing. I didn't report to anybody. I was ignorant. I was innocent. I didn't know I had rights. I ended up pregnant with no choice. I was told abortion is prohibited. I had a son, and this is part of what he's laying out. This is part of what she's laying out.
Cargué con una historia, un hijo no planeado, no esperado. Perdí el colegio, me arrastré por la vida con un hijo sin una profesión. El poco dinero que ganaba no alcanzaba, me prostituí. Viví por 35 años con depresión, con vergüenza, coraje, impotencia.
I carried this story for over 35 years, an unwanted son. I had no school, no education. I was still in poverty. I had to prostitute myself. I had depression, I was angry, and I was impotent.
Mi hijo, con su mirada, su actitud, me pedía una respuesta. Mamá, ¿quién es mi padre? 35 años, esquivando su mirada, su pregunta.
My son would always give me a look. He would always ask, "Mom, who's my dad?" I couldn't look at him. For over 35 years, this question continued to reappear.
¿Dónde están los políticos, la iglesia, las defensoras de la vida? ¿Dónde que los necesito? Cuando por primera vez lo miras a los ojos después de una vida miserable y tengo que responder, eres el producto de una violación.
Where are the politicians, the church, the defenders of life? Where are they when I need them? When the first time I told my son, I had to look at him after 35 years and tell him, "You are a product of rape."
¿A quién le cobro este dolor de toda una vida llena de coraje en contra de los que hacen las leyes absurdas? Yo debía tener el derecho a elegir, decidir por mi cuerpo, por mi vida.
Who do I look to? With all this anger, all these laws, I had to look for myself. Where are the choices that I needed to have?
Thank you, Araceli. It's time that we look soberly at the situation in the present, that we are going back to these days. If you are a person who refuses to accept that kind of future for women, now is the time to be part of spreading these stories and standing up uncompromising against a movement that claims to be about life and is actually about forced motherhood and a position of enslavement of women across society. We are living through a time of ominous Supreme Court rulings, of legislatures that have made it very clear that they are not going to stand on the side of women, hundreds of restrictions coming down across abortion, dozens of clinics forced to close across this country. If you are a person that feels a moral obligation to women, and maybe you have considered yourself to be pro-life, it is time to actually investigate. It's time to hear the stories of the women. And if you are a woman who has had an abortion, now is the time to tell it in public. 1 in 3 women have abortions. It's not a certain kind of woman. It's definitely not an irresponsible woman. It is a responsible choice, a moral choice, and a liberating choice. In a world full of rape, in a world full of abuse, and a world where actually there is a global war on women raging, it is essential that women in every state have access to abortion on demand and without apology. And it is not easy to tell these stories. I want to urge the people here and the people across the country to put their name on a statement that was published in the Austin Statesman, the Monday, the beginning of the trial against HB 2 here in Texas, the anti-abortion bill, that you could also find online. This is an effort to reset the political and moral terms around this debate. This is a statement to stop forced motherhood. The anti-abortion movement wants to ask when life begins. We need to turn it around and start setting terms and asking them, at what point do you think a woman becomes an incubator? At what point does a woman's body become the property of the state? At what point in the pregnancy does a woman's life and dreams and goals, personality, aspirations, and ideas get foreclosed? What's that? Never. That's right. That's right. We have to fight to make this real. The Abortion Rights Freedom Ride is welcoming people in through 3 main avenues and also welcoming ideas for other forms of resistance to spread the truth about abortion and about women and to fight back against these attacks right now. This statement is one of those ways. You can join Susan Brownmiller, you can join Dr. Cornel West, you can join Gloria Steinman, actor Mark Ruffalo, a growing number of prominent people who are using their influence and throwing behind this project, and people just like you and me in this room. Another way is every single Wednesday, 7 p.m. in August, here in Texas, next in San Antonio, and then in the Rio Grande Valley. Tune in to StopPatriarchy.org. Watch a people's hearing. Invite people to your house to watch this. This is not the way that people are thinking about what is happening to abortion rights in this country. Most people don't even know about what's happening in Texas, and most people do not know that this right is being restricted into non-existence. People must hear the stories that bring to light what's actually at stake. And then every single Thursday in August, we're taking the verdict from these people's hearings to the individuals and the institutions that have taken it upon themselves to spearhead the attacks on women's lives through the abolishing of abortion. And everyone here is welcome to join us. We're going to go straight up to Rick Perry's house tomorrow at 4 p.m. That's right. The governor of Texas has claimed that his goal is to make abortion a thing of the past. He should hear this story. He should hear your voice. And all of this will culminate August 25th through September 1st in a national week of defiance, where people across the country are organizing, and much more people need to be organizing in their towns across the country to act out, to tell the stories publicly and loudly, and to protest the institutions that to this day have maintained their legitimacy while they actually aim to enslave half of humanity. So a story that's just been added, which we're going to hear now. I'd like to introduce another story of an abortion sought before abortion was legalized in this country. Please welcome Peggy.
Hi there. What I haven't heard yet is the element of shame involved in getting pregnant without a husband. I grew up in the 50s, graduated from high school in '61. I had my 50th anniversary reunion a couple of years ago, and my classmate came and reminded me of the tragedy when her older sister, had to drop out of school because she was pregnant, which brought to mind a number of other students at the age of 14, 15 that had to drop out of school because they weren't allowed to be at school if they were pregnant. It was a shame that nobody wanted to pass on to let anybody else know that that could happen. It ruined their lives. It nearly ruined mine. I was a college student. I was a grad student studying in Hamburg, Germany. And as a foreign student, it's much easier to make friends with other foreigners than it is with the natives. And so I befriended foreign students, and one of whom was a nice guy that was living in my dorm. And we studied in the library together, and one time he said, "I'll fix you a nice meal from my native country." And the two sides of the male and female dorm had a shared kitchen. So we went in the kitchen, he fixed the food, and then we went to his room, and it was a splendid meal. And then he knocked me down on the couch and held my head and raped me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to scream and make any noise. It was a shameful situation, and I didn't want to get any trouble. I didn't know what to do. And so I left, and it was a Saturday, and so the next morning I thought, well, being a Catholic, I'll go to Mass. I don't know what to do, but I'll go to Mass. Well, the nuns had always told us in grade school that we should avoid the near occasion of sin, whatever that was supposed to be. And so that phrase kept going, and I was near to that occasion, and I shouldn't have been near to that occasion. So I went to confession, and the priest said, "Yes, it's your fault. You shouldn't have been near that. You shouldn't have been in that. You shouldn't have been in that situation. It's your fault." So then I left, and he gave me a big penance, and I didn't do it. And and I didn't do it. Because something said it wasn't my fault, and yet I didn't know. And I didn't, well, after he told me it was my fault, I thought I better not go to the police because they'll tell me the same thing. But anyway, I still had to live in a dorm, and so I thought, well, it wasn't his fault, it was my fault. So I stayed friends with him. And then we even made love some more, and I did kind of liked him. And then it turned out I was pregnant. And here it was, that was in early May, and so I had to leave and come back to the States and finish my education, do my student teaching. I was on scholarships and loans, and here I was pregnant. And how could I go home, face the shame, tell my mom, who'd spent all of her money to send me to school, and no dad, and the shame to my family and the shame to me, and how could I even face anybody, and with my big stomach by the time I got home. And I couldn't think of anything to do except to kill myself. Luckily, I was in Germany, and so it would be easy. Nobody knew what I would be doing, or they wouldn't, And so every time I got off was standing on the bus and the doors open, I'd calculate the steps and think, okay, I have this much time to fall out on my stomach. If I jump right, it'll go before the doors close. And then waiting for the train, the subway, I kept thinking, okay, that's the last resort. I will just jump here. That's the best thing. I ran and ran and ran. I ran to try to get, anything I could do to stop the baby from growing. Thought I'd wear it out or something. And so, I'll call him Guy. This guy, he knew some medical students, and so he said, hey, they said they can give you an abortion. We can do it, and they can set up a place. And I thought, gee, do I want two strange guys looking at me that I don't even know? I mean, that was it wasn't that I'd get the abortion. I thought, I don't want anybody else knowing it, and I don't want anybody to see me naked. So I wasn't an option. I just said no. And so he started giving me money to go to the doctors. Now in those days in Germany, it was, and it's still probably, you just pay 25 marks and you can see a doctor. So he gave me names and he gave me the 25 marks. And I don't know how many doctors I went to. It was dreadful. Each doctor, I'd go and say what I was there for. I said I was pregnant, I needed an abortion. And each doctor would say, well, let me inspect you. And so I'd undress, get your pants off, they'd say, and they'd look at me, and then they'd say, yes, you are so many months pregnant. Now, why did you come to me? Who gave you my name? And how could I say who gave his name? I'm a very timid person. So I just said, well, I picked it out of the phone book. How could I say these people gave me your name? Because they were so accusatory. So he took my money and said, you better go find somebody else. And so I did. I went, walked all over Hamburg and took the buses and took the subways and everything. All the time that men were making up to me. In fact, after my abortion, I must say, I was on the bus and I thought it was a real crowd. I was so depressed. And I was always so depressed, and I thought, this must be a really crowded bus because this guy is really pressing against me. And I was sitting there thinking, and all of a sudden I realized that was a penis growing on my shoulder. I thought, gee, this guy is so pressed in. He thinks he's getting turned on, and I don't know what to do. I got off and I looked back, and there wasn't anybody else on the bus. He was just pressing against me. I mean, these are things that girls traveling alone or being alone, any girl, anywhere, goes through. Well, anyway, finally, just a few days before it was the last day I could go, because I had final exams and everything, packing and all. I got a doctor that took me in, but he gave me some threats. He said, don't you dare tell anybody. You cannot tell anybody ever. Do you realize that? And of course I said, yeah, I won't tell a soul. So he said, well, come tomorrow at 5 o'clock. When everybody was gone, his nurse was gone, he just set me up on this table. I didn't get any anesthesia. It didn't hurt that bad. I heard everything that was going on and felt it. And then he gave me some pain pills, told me to get a cab and go home. The guy met me. He said, you're going to need an accompaniment. I couldn't have finished my education. I couldn't have come back and done my student teaching. I could never apply for a scholarship again, having a baby, and a little illegal baby. That's the way I saw it. My last word would be, we condemn these other countries for their honor killings, but this is the state of honor killing that we're doing to our own girls, because we're sending them to their own deaths. If those who had been lucky enough to have abortions, to have the money to go to San Juan, to have good money to go anywhere else, they're the lucky ones, but it's the ones who have no resort, who are afraid to tell anybody, who bear that shame alone, and who have to face either self-mutilation or death, because nothing else is better. I mean, having a baby is not better than death in many situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. It matters that people are telling these stories tonight, and it matters that everyone across the country who cares to know, and everyone in the room, lift our sights up to what the world could be like. What could the world actually be like How could women's lives be transformed and future generations of women and their potential and their dreams actually be unleashed if there was not these stifling restrictions and a culture of shame that treats women like property here and around the world? Right here in Texas, last year, HB2 was passed. HB2 did 4 things. One thing that it did was it restricted the use of medication abortion. So as clinics are shut down, the ability of women to safely self-induce abortion with the guidance of a doctor over the phone or over Skype, that's gone in Texas now. A second thing that was done was all abortions were banned at 20 weeks. I was just having a conversation earlier about how all of the tests that tell you when there is a fetal anomaly, and a lot of the tests that tell you, like the baby will be born dead because the organs are on the outside of its body or it doesn't have a brain, or the things that will seriously threaten the life of the mother, genetic problems, those are not discoverable until after 20 weeks. So now in Texas and increasingly across the country, abortions are banned at 20 weeks. Then 2 more pieces of HB2 have closed down nearly 20 abortion clinics in Texas. And if nothing changes by September 1st, there will be only 6 abortion clinics in a state of 26 million people. This is truly a state of emergency. These are 2 medically unnecessary laws, and people must understand this has nothing to do with the standard of healthcare. This is the hospital admitting privileges law that requires that abortion doctors be on staff at a hospital within a 30-mile radius. This puts entirely in the power of the hospitals whether or not a clinic can stay open. They can just deny a doctor admitting privileges because they're at a Catholic hospital. This is part of what's happening. Because the doctors from out of state, because there are less and less abortion doctors providing this service, they're under such threat, they wear targets on their backs. They can just say, sorry, you're out of state, we don't want you on our staff. Or, like happened recently in Corpus Christi, they can grant the hospital admitting privileges, and then when they see a wave of protesters outside that says that this hospital kills babies, they revoke those privileges, and the clinic is forced to close. And the last, which is being challenged right now by heroic abortion providers here in Texas, this was the basis for why we were at the courthouse here in Austin this Monday on August 4th. This isn't settled yet. The providers are challenging the last piece, which is the ambulatory surgical center piece of HB2, which says that abortion clinics have to be outfitted like emergency rooms. Oh, it's that one. Ha!
There we go. Everybody speaking from now on, don't touch that mic.
There's 2 clips. Got it. Okay.
Keep going.
Thank you. So these are restrictions on abortion clinics, like your door has to be able to fit 2 gurneys through it, or your ceilings have to be a certain height, or the ventilation system has to be a certain way. This is not necessary for abortion clinics. We were in the last clinic in all of Fargo last year, and we'll learn more about this throughout the evening. They've been open for 17 years, and they've sent 1 patient to the hospital. The ambulance does not have to drive into the clinic. It is fine. And what this means is the clinics here in Texas and in the states that are passing the ambulatory surgical center restriction have to remodel everything, and this costs up to $3 million, and so they're forced to close. If we don't resist this, or if the court rules on the wrong side of history this week, those clinics, almost 20 more clinics in Texas will be shut down. So I want to introduce Mary Lou Greenberg, who has been observing in the courthouse this week to give some updates and reporting back on some key developments in this lawsuit against the state of Texas. Thank
you. First, I just want to say that, and maybe people here are aware of this, but the dates of the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, Ground Zero, Texas, was not of our own choosing. It was really set by the state of Texas because Alex was talking about a House Bill 2. That deadline is September 1st, and if things do not change, there will be only 6 clinics. By some estimates, some people say less than that, open in the state of Texas. Only 6 clinics that meet these standards that she was talking about and that I'll talk about a little more. September 1st, That's the end date. We were here on Monday. Alex mentioned a trial began in court, a challenge to this bill, this HB2, particularly around the point of clinics having to meet these very strict standards of ambulatory surgery centers. And ambulatory surgery centers are, as she described, small hospitals. They have very strict standards, strict building codes, stricter regulations for reporting, and so forth. But under the pretense of women's health, these horrendous restrictions are going to make women's health even more on the edge. These tremendous restrictions are going to force women, even more than it's forcing them right now, into the days of that you've just heard about, the back alley abortions, the self-induced abortions. What I heard in court, and I've been there all days this week, particularly on the first day, when the providers made their case, and this was challenged by lawyers for the state of Texas. They're trying to do two things, the lawyers are trying to do for the state of Texas. They're trying to prove, or rather they can't prove it, but they're trying to challenge the statements of fact about the safety of abortion. For instance, one doctor who testified Monday said, he put it this way, the safety of abortion. He said, mortality-wise, abortion is safer than a shot of penicillin. And also, things that came out by the providers in the opening argument, that from 2008 to 2011 in Texas, 548 women died from pregnancy-related causes. One woman died from abortion complications. But they talk about health, and they talk about how women are going to be able to overcome these obstacles. They are actually talking about this. First, let me say, almost 1 million women will be forced to drive more than 150 miles to an abortion clinic if the law remains. And a number of those are going to have to drive many more miles than 150 miles. Attorneys for the state of Texas cited a study that said that, well, women are still getting abortions. That the rate of getting abortions hasn't dropped tremendously. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what they're citing. And they're using that as a reason why, well, see, women are not going to be suffering an undue burden from these restrictions. An undue burden is a term that is used to determine whether something is constitutional or not around abortion, whether it provides an undue burden for women. Okay? And this is what they said. They said, well, despite clinics closing, despite the difficulty in getting to a clinic, and maybe it's going to cost a woman more money, and it's going to take later in her pregnancy, but this is not an undue burden. Because women will still fight through all these restrictions to find a way of eliminating unwanted pregnancies. Because the very fact that women will risk life and limb, finances, that this is not an undue burden. And this reminds me, or it was brought to light in an excellent Esquire interview with the abortion provider, Dr. Willie Parker, who pointed out that this is the same reasoning, that the segregationists used to justify whites only in Mississippi schools. In other words, black students can't go to these schools, but they'll find some other schools to go to. That's the justification that is similar to the justification for these laws. And they claim, well, that's basically it. That's basically what I wanted to say. Because any government, any governmental body that claims that putting women through hell to get a simple, medically necessary, and more than that, a procedure that's necessary for her very humanity. Any government body that claims that is illegitimate in my eyes.
So now we're going to have Margot come up and speak. She presented a testimony at the filibuster last year against the HB2.
Hi, I'm Margot. I'm an abortion rights freedom writer, and I'm actually presenting testimony that was made available to the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride from one of the many heroic people who were part of the vast outpouring last year opposing House Bill 2 and supporting the filibuster by Wendy Davis. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on an issue about which I care deeply. My name is Amy Manuel, and I live in Senate District 30. Why am I here? I'm here because I am a woman. I'm here because I am a wife. I'm here because I am a mother. I'm here because I am one of the 40% of women between the ages of 40 and 55 that has had an abortion. Why am I here? I'm here because the women of my son's generation deserve the same rights and freedom that I had. I'm here because my mother's generation and my sister's generation were there for me. I'm here because if we don't stand up and make our voices heard, young women won't have those same rights and freedoms that I had. Why am I here? I'm here because 116 women died of pregnancy-related causes in Texas in 2011, but 0 died from safe, legal abortions. I'm here for the approximately 5,000 women in America that died each year from unsafe abortions prior to Roe v. Wade. I'm here for Becky Bell, who died from an unsafe abortion at 17 years because she was afraid to ask for parental consent or get a judicial bypass. I'm here for all the women who will die from unsafe, illegal abortions if this legislation passes. Why am I here? I'm here because women are being bullied. I'm here because women are being shamed. I'm here because our doctors are being murdered. I'm here because our clinics are being bombed. Why am I here? I'm here because laws like this one are closing our healthcare centers. I'm here because laws like this will make it harder for women to get the care they need. I'm here so women in Texas won't have to drive hundreds of miles to see a doctor. Why am I here? I'm here because, as Representative Sinfronia Thompson said, we will not be bullied. I am here because I am a woman, and we will not be bullied.
Thank you, Margot. I just want to reassert now, if anybody has a story about the current state of emergency in Texas or around the world facing abortion rights, feel free to talk to Joan right here, and we'll make sure that you get to tell your story. Next, we have had many submissions of abortion stories, both positive and liberating abortion stories, and the stories of what it means for women when access is denied, sent in through StopPatriarchy.org. And we'd like to encourage everyone and anyone to go to StopPatriarchy.org, click on the People's Hearing button, watch the previous People's Hearings, and submit your own story. I want to introduce one of those stories that was sent in through the website by a woman named Iris. And this is going to be read by abortion rights freedom writer Nova. Please welcome Nova.
I was 16 the first time I became pregnant. I had a baby girl and went back to start my senior year of high school 5 days after I delivered her. I went off to a Catholic all-girls college with my 1-year-old in tow. I was going to get a degree in nursing. By the end of my first term of college, I had excellent grades and a positive pregnancy test. I didn't see how I could make it through a rigorous nursing program with a toddler and an infant with no help. This was my first abortion, but sadly, it was not my last. I wanted a different life for myself and for my daughter. I wanted an education and a career. Most of all, I wanted to break the cycle of poverty in my family. I cried, and I hated that I found myself in this predicament more than once. I didn't need these protesters telling me how horrible I was, because I was already lashing myself. Nothing they did showed me the love of God or gave me any peace. It only added to my shame. Today, I have a bachelor's in the science of nursing and a doctorate in nursing practice. I am a mother, a daughter, and caregiver to my mother, and I am engaged to be married. I knew that I could be someone and make a difference in this world if I was given the opportunity, and I was. I had the freedom to choose when I wanted to have more children, and I made that choice. I am not my abortion, and I am not ashamed. All women deserve the right to choose when and if they become mothers.
Speaking on the harassment and shame a lot of women face when going to an abortion clinic, they're yelled at. Sometimes they're name-called, they're called whores, they're told that they're committing genocides against their race. And there are wonderful escorts, volunteers out there who defend these clinics every single day. So we have a woman named Sue today who volunteers as a patient escort at an abortion clinic.
Hi, I'm Sue, and I'm a fifth-generation native Texan. I just want to make sure everyone's remembering to breathe. We are fortunate to be here together in the Austin Center, and we can hold each other and calm each other down until we stop shaking and crying. If you're at home, remember to breathe. Take the stories in, let them move you, keep them into your heart, and take them into your future. Tell them, retell them. I want to tell you what it's like to volunteer as a patient escort at an abortion clinic. When a woman approaches a clinic entrance, she is descended upon by a mob of protesters. You may be aware that some celebrities complain of being stalked and surrounded by paparazzi. It's uncomfortable and intrusive, and yet that mob loves them. Clinic protesters do not love women. They know nothing of a woman's circumstances, yet they judge. They don't know whether she is there for an abortion or even if she's pregnant. But they invade her personal space, call her a murderer, chant in a childlike voice, "Mommy, mommy, please don't kill me." Thrust propaganda at her and pictures of peaceful, happy babies that are not a part of her reality. These ruffians refer to themselves as sidewalk counselors. Comprehensive professional counseling, excuse me, I'm having some of those feelings, is part of the abortion experience inside the clinic. A woman subjected to street harassment by unlicensed stalkers who photograph her vehicle and license plate, as well as those of the volunteers and the clinic staff, is not being counseled. This harassment is genuinely threatening. People who are really pro-life would not murder clinic staff who respect women and trust them to make the best decisions for themselves and their families. The Texas clinic where I volunteered had to be regularly evacuated due to bomb threats. This is terrorism. When pregnancy is seen as an indicator that a woman dared to engage in sexual activity, and men must convene to determine what she can be permitted to do about that, when she must be punitively required to virtually sit in a corner and contemplate the consequences of her actions, when she has to be secretive about her decision, when she is not respected and equipped and empowered to plan her own destiny, she is enslaved. When she gives her story to activists to read on a webcast because the love of her family and friends, the support of her faith community, and her employment are all tenuous and cannot be counted on to accept her autonomy, she is enslaved. Forced motherhood is female enslavement, and that is why we say abortion on demand without apology. We are in Texas for at least 3 more weeks. Come and join us. Send your story. Invite people over to watch the webcast with you and discuss them afterwards. Participate in whatever way you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Abortion providers are heroes, and clinic escorts are heroes, too. Next, I'd like to introduce testimony sent in from New Orleans from an activist named Elizabeth Cook, and that will be read by Becky, abortion rights freedom rider.
This is a testimony from activist Elizabeth Cook of New Orleans. The anti-abortion law that passed recently in the Louisiana legislature was introduced by an African-American female legislator, Representative Katrina Jackson, Democrat from Monroe. In March, the Louisiana House Committee on Health and Welfare voted unanimously to pass HB 388, which would require abortion providers to gain admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles of where they perform abortions. The bill then easily passed the House, said Teddy Wilson from RH Reality Check. This bill then passed the Louisiana Senate easily, and Governor Jindal signed the bill. This bill will succeed in closing several abortion clinics. This is the reality in Louisiana and shows how far right the Democratic Party has drifted. Planned Parenthood didn't put up a fight. I suspect they knew the tide of public opinion was against them, whether due to ideological beliefs or indifference. Here's where the absence of an organized and effective left is really felt, particularly for women. It's time for the left in Louisiana and everywhere to put aside their sectarian differences and communicate with each other in open, democratic dialogue and find common ground on issues and strategies. The People's Hearing for the Texas Freedom Ride in support of the right of women to have control over their reproductive rights is a vehicle for democratizing the fight to restore those rights in Texas and will only help this cause in other states as well.
Now, speakers from different perspectives will like to speak to how people can contribute to a future and the future of having women liberated and the complete liberation of women. The way out and way forward toward abortion on demand and without apology.
It's essential that all of us understand all the ways in which we've been lied to about women's potential and about abortion. And it's also important that we understand the truth. But the truth alone will not set us free. So let's get down to what is it going to take to get to that kind of future and what people can do right now. I'd like to introduce Shay, who is a volunteer here on the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride. She's going to read her letter of why she wanted to join the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride Ground Zero Texas and speak a little to the experience she's had so far here.
Okay, so I wrote this before I joined you guys. If I got the opportunity to travel with Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, I would be extremely grateful. If women's abortion rights were taken, women would feel as if they don't have a voice. As women, we have honorable rights to do what we want with our bodies. So not being able to turn to abortion when needed will make one feel as if she has no control over her life. Abortions help women of all ages make an important decision about their life while also making the woman understand that she is more than just a holder for the fetus. Being a part of something this special will let women know all over the world that they are not alone when it comes to fighting for our rights for abortion. I don't have a personal experience with pregnancy, but I know that abortion saves a lot of teens and young adults from feeling as if they cannot succeed in life. No one in life is perfect. Nothing is guaranteed 100% effective, and everyone learns from mistakes. I have never been pregnant myself, but I have friends that have. Some of them never had a role model in their lives to tell them the importance of not getting pregnant at a young age, while others just simply made mistakes. One of my friends stressed herself out so much about her pregnancy, she decided to drop out of school and run away from home because she wanted to save herself from embarrassment. I was extremely sad to hear that my friend, who was such an honorable student, felt it as if she had no choice in life because of a simple mistake. Since my friend was extremely scared to tell her mother, an abusive father, I encouraged her to talk to a teacher who I felt would provide wise information about pregnancies. Weeks later, after the abortion, I was ecstatic. Weeks later, after she decided to get an abortion, I was ecstatic to see my close friend back at school, focused more than ever. Abortion clinics offer young teens a choice to live again. There are so many teens unable to take care of a child mentally as well as financially. Why should one be forced into motherhood if they know they are not able to provide a stable environment for their child? In Texas, I will be happy to fight for what is right. There is nothing worse than feeling alone and held down. Thank you.
So these past few days, we've been going out to the streets, connecting with people, connecting with communities, college students. So we'd like to share what we faced out there and reflect a little bit. Riley is going to share what it's been like going out to people with the message of abortion on demand and without apology.
Okay, I'm just going to hold this. I know. Okay, cool. Okay, so my piece is called Changing the Terms and Demystifying the Abortion Conversation. I have some experience talking about abortion, and I have to say it's not that crazy. In fact, it gets a lot easier the more you do it. The more you run up against the same types of arguments, and the more you can recognize that these same ways of thinking are actually why we need to get out there with the uncompromised truth. Yesterday, a group of volunteers went out to do outreach throughout different parts of Austin. I went over to North Congress, near the governor's mansion, where there was a mix of young professionals, students, and homeless people. We went out to build for the people's hearing and to sound the alarm on the abortion rights emergency, and challenge people to confront the reality of what women are facing today, to understand the fact that this is about women's liberation or women's enslavement, and to get involved with the movement out to stop these attacks and defeat this war on women. People have not heard anyone use the word abortion in this light in a really long time. So we get a lot of different kinds of reactions when we go out like this. One common thing I hear, and heard a lot yesterday, is people wanting to immediately talk about late-term abortion. They ask us at what point we think there should be a cutoff to abortion access. My typical response: at what point does a woman become an incubator? At what point does her life not matter? This whole focus on late-term abortion is dishonest. Not only do most abortions happen in the first trimester, but later abortions mainly happen because of lack of access or health problems that develop later. This whole framework eliminates the woman, the living, breathing, and conscious person with dreams, desires, and a social existence from the equation entirely. Another common response. Another common response. Well, there are consequences to everything. If a woman isn't using protection, or if a woman has sex in general, she has to deal with the consequences. She has to be ready to have a baby. My response. A baby should never be a consequence. Being ready to have sex is just not the same thing as being ready for a child. A woman should never be morally obligated to carry a pregnancy to term. Forcing a woman to have a child against her will is a form of enslavement. It is forcible control over a woman's body, over her whole life, and there is nothing moral about that. Of course, you get the anti-abortion people, who never have a problem telling you how they really feel about this issue. Sometimes it is best, if these people are some of the real crazies, to let them go. But as of late, I've had a really hard time doing that. These people have gotten away with this shit for far too long, and they are winning. When people walked by me yesterday opposing what we were doing, I began to agitate, saying things like, there is nothing moral about forcing a woman to have a child against her will, or fuck that morality, it is enslaving women. Let me tell you, these people are never prepared to hear anything like that. It is really gratifying to see their shocked faces. Some people like to say, well, that is policing people's morality. But look, this is not just some individual morality or individual opinion. This is a whole outlook, a whole view of women not at all based in reality, and it is being codified into law right now and destroying women's lives. The last thing I want to speak to is this thing of pro-choice people walking by you, oftentimes not even wanting your flyer, but giving you a thumbs up or saying, I'm with you, but continuing to walk on by. When this happened yesterday, my response was this: that is not enough. I began again to agitate, saying, it is not enough to be pro-choice and on the sidelines anymore. We are losing. Some people respond with genuine curiosity because what we are saying is true, and most people don't want to see women's rights go back in time, but don't actually know the emergency situation we're facing today. And sure, some others get irritated and keep walking, but we need to remember that this is the truth. We are losing this battle, and now more than ever, people need to get off the sidelines and throw in on this fight because women's lives are at stake. Look, anybody can do this. Maybe not as loudly as me right now, but I once thought that I couldn't do this. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually still a pretty shy person. But I know far too much to just sit back and watch this shit go down. If you care about the lives and futures of women, then you need to step out, speak out, and fight like hell to change how all of society understands this issue and acts in accordance with it. There are lots of ways of doing this. You could hold a discussion at your high school or your college or among coworkers or family or friends. You could download the fact sheet from our website and leave it in public spaces or post it online on social media. There are a million ways to get involved. We all have to take responsibility for what we know and go out to change how people think because it really matters.
Thank you, Riley. It's not that crazy, and it's urgently needed to stand on a street corner and talk to people about abortion. I'm proud to introduce our next speaker, who's a feminist, a lawyer, and co-founder of the Feminist Women's Health Center in Los Angeles. She's the author of several books, including A New View of a Woman's Body. She started providing abortions in 1971. She's also an advisory board member of the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride. Please welcome Carol Downer.
Good evening. Help me to be sure that I haven't heard some of the speakers. I want to be sure that, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. I am so pleased and honored to be here tonight, and I feel like this is the start of something tremendously exciting. And about time, right? About time. And I have to confess that even though I am very upset about what's happening in Texas, profoundly upset, I'm really happy to be in this group where people are dealing with the fact that it is not going to be easy to gain reproductive freedom for women. It is not, and never has been. We've had Roe v. Wade, and, you know, a lot of people thought that, wow, the battle's over. Well, to those of us who provide abortions, it has never been over, not even 1 minute. And people who have done abortion, been escorts at clinics, are very aware of the tremendous push that is coming at us. I mean, there are people, and I'm not just talking about the crazies, I mean the kind of nutty people. I am talking about the people that fund them, the people who run this society, who have determined that it's now time for women to start having more babies. And those people are not going to go away, and unless we are constantly fighting this battle. You know, not too long ago, a colleague of mine, Kathy Courtney, who was a co-founder of the Detroit Feminist Women's Health Center, wrote a piece on her social media where she said, "I never thought I'd spend my life fighting for abortion." And I thought, well, Kathy, of course, you knew, and I called her and I reminded her, of course we are. This battle it's not going to be over until we've won many things, until the society is reorganized so profoundly and in so many ways. This battle is not going to be over. And the people, you know, just to say, I've been affiliated with a lot of women's clinics and a provider belonging to the National Abortion Federation, and we have been attacked at all times. Now these clinic regs, this current Texas crop of regulations, when we started our clinic in California in 1973, 50 days after Roe v. Wade, an identical set of laws were proposed in the California legislature. Now, at that time, they didn't call it a surgery center because they didn't even have surgery centers at that time. We had to become like hospitals. So in order to fight that battle, there were, several women's clinics in California, 4 of us. We committed a couple of members of our group to go up to Sacramento to practically live up there. We rented an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment. We all slept on the floor. We haunted the legislators. We went out. We were, constantly working at it, plus getting our own, women that came into our clinic to provide support. We were constantly educating them, constantly getting them aware of what was happening. And so they knew in Sacramento, they knew us. Here come the feminists. And we beat down those regulations. But that was that year. they reappeared the next year and the next, and for the almost 40 years ever since. They just recently got some traction here. But in fact, that's been an ongoing thing. Abortion, not only everybody's aware of the doctors that have been killed, the clinic escorts that have been killed, the clinics that have been blown up. Ours was burned down in Los Angeles. The Redding and the Chico clinic were burned down in California. Our doctors were put in jail for ordinary complications. I was the head of the defense committee for Dr. Bruce Steer in Riverside, California, and he served in jail for 60 days. And by the way, we did have the support of Refuse and Resist at that time. Yes, major supporters. I mean, it's no coincidence that I'm here. I mean, this you know, is where I have been for many, many years. So yes, but the general public was not aware of this. And I have to lay some of that at our own door. We should have made it more visible, but it has become visible now. And I think that, you know, I know that everybody's saying, oh, damn, I'm never going to have a weekend to myself. And that's true, you're not. But that doesn't mean that you aren't going to get a lot back for that. Because there's nothing like dealing with reality, to be fully alive and to be out, yeah, with other people. Yeah. So that is both the bad news and the good news. And once again, I am so thrilled to be here tonight, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Carol Downer. I'm proud to introduce a writer for Revolution newspaper and the initiator of End Pornography and Patriarchy, the Enslavement and Degradation of Women, Sunsara Taylor.
Okay, so I just want to say I am so honored to have witnessed firsthand in person the testimony that we heard today. Araceli, it took tremendous courage. Coralie, and forgive me, I didn't catch your name, but I really appreciate Wendy? Peggy, all of you. I mean, it's so important that this come out, and I'm very honored to be sharing the space as well with Carol Downer, who has been just a frontline fighter on this and many other struggles for decades. And everybody should hear the truth and the understanding that they're bringing out. And it is the reality. I don't want to repeat it. Last week I spoke at the hearing about the importance of telling the truth and not mincing words. And, you know, it's been controversial. Should you say abortion on demand without apology? Will you turn people off? Can you really say forced motherhood is female enslavement? And I want to say, once again, briefly, if we know what's true, if we know the reality of what is going to happen to women and what is already being done to women through the laws backed by the state, backed by all the shame and tradition and the weight of thousands of years of tradition heaped on women, justifying that, making them feel isolated and alone as they go through that, if we know that and we don't tell that in the most truthful, plain, honest ways we know how, if we allow ourselves to be part of hiding that reality from people, which most people don't know, because the women who lived in that era, those stories have been kept silent and private. And even among women who lived through it, the scale and the scope of this is not understood, what it meant for all women. And then younger people, there's been several generations, have no idea what this was like. And if we know this and everybody listening has heard this tonight, If we don't go out and tell the truth, then we are complicit with allowing people to sit on the sidelines as women's lives are foreclosed and their futures are foreclosed. And that's not conscionable. We can do it in different ways. We can be involved in different ways, but we had better, like Carol said, deal with reality. The second thing I want to talk about tonight, and actually focus on more, since I touched on that last week, is what do we mean when we say, we have the 3 goals of the Freedom Ride. Treat this as a national struggle that needs a national counteroffensive. Tell the truth and change the terms. This is about women's liberation or women's enslavement. The fight over abortion has never been about babies. The third goal I want to speak a little bit more about, which is to build massive, independent political resistance. And a lot of times people say, what do you mean by that? What does that mean, resist? And frankly, it's an indictment of the situation where people have become so used to and so limited in their imagination that all they can conceive of for politics is looking up at those in power and trying to figure out who in power is the least bad we can support. Political resistance is about stop looking up for a political savior within the Democratic Party or any other party in the halls of power. We've seen over the last 4 decades the political spectrum hurtle further and further and further to the right. We saw it under Clinton, we saw it under Reagan, we saw it under Bush 1, we saw it under Bush 2, we're seeing it under Obama. It doesn't really matter that much who's in power. The whole direction keeps moving further and further. And there's always somebody on the left end of it. But I'm sorry, what is on the left end of that political spectrum today is way to the right of what was on the left end under Reagan. It's unimaginable. We've seen over and over again this dynamic where yesterday's outrage becomes today's compromised position and tomorrow's limit of what can be imagined. And now we're having a fight over birth control. Now we have 6 states with 1 abortion clinic left. It's time to stop looking up for a political savior and start looking out at the millions of people in this country. There are millions of us. There are millions of us who do not want to see women forced to have children against their will, do not want to see women slammed backwards, do not want to see the nightmare for society, for women, but for all of society that it means when women's lives are foreclosed and enslaved in this way. It's not good for anybody. And we have to look out and we have to pull people off the sidelines. We have to do what Riley was talking about, go out on the street. We have to go to our families. There's different ways to do it, but we have to pull people off the sidelines. And we actually have to go into the streets and say, I don't care what anybody in power is saying. I don't care what the courts are ruling, what the politicians are saying, what the media is blah, blah, blahing about. We are going to go out and we're going to put ourselves on the line in the streets. We're going to sit in, we're going to speak out, we're going to yell. There is a place for yelling and anger with substance, with truth, and we're not going to be moved and backed off of that. And we're going to do this in different ways. There needs to be civil disobedience. There needs to be people standing up and saying, we are putting ourselves on the line. This is a time when so much is at stake, and if we start to act that way, and you who are watching start to act that way, and join and bring others into this, there really are millions of us. Right now, we're mainly on the sidelines. We're fighting to change that. You should join us in fighting to change that. All month while we're down here, everything you do is part of something bigger. It's joined up with many others. It's amplified, and it's a growing national movement, and we need it. This last week, we saw all these rulings around the country. Alabama and Mississippi, we got some good news. They overturned, they blocked some very severe laws that would have closed the only abortion clinic in Mississippi, and the only abortion, and several of the remaining abortion clinics in Alabama. This was blocked. Those clinics stay open. This is good. And people look at that, and I think I've heard this, where people say, well, there's some good things happening and some bad things happening. But I have to say, it's kind of like looking at a man being fired upon by, like 30, 40, 50 bullets at once and saying he's bleeding from the neck and he's bleeding from the leg, but there's like 5 bullets that didn't hit. We're doing pretty good. What's going on is, even with this mixed rulings, all of this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. It's just no question, because there are different rulings at the federal level. And the more that we're building resistance now, even in growing, beginning networks, out wherever you are watching across this country and on the ground in Texas, we're beginning something that needs to grow. And that actually is preparing us for the bigger fights that are coming. The big fights that are on now, and even more, as Carol was saying, this is not a short-term strategy. And the resistance and the networks and the organization we are forging now, and the example we are setting, and the people we are calling for to join us is going to be all the more necessary right now and going forward. So I just want to say, this is this is all month long, and then the week of defiance is so important. People should take the pictures, you're going to see them later, of the women. We have them on our website. Download them. Bring them into the public square. Women who died from illegal abortions. Raise them up and make people see them and hand out the flyers. And you will find people, just as we have found in every part of the country we've traveled through and everywhere we've been in Texas, we find people who are so thrilled to find people finally saying this. You will find those people, and you will organize them, and next thing you know, there will be hundreds of us, thousands of us, tens of thousands of us, and we will not stop until there are millions, because that's what it will take. I just want to say, people say it's a bad thing that there's communists involved. People are upset that I'm a communist, that I work with the Revolutionary Communist Party, that I'm a follower of Baba Vakian, and this is thrown at us as if this is something very, very bad for the Freedom Ride. And I just want to say, I'm absolutely, I believe in a revolution. I'm fighting to make a revolution. And absolutely, I see leading people to stand up and resist today the war on women, to raise their heads and to fight against this as part of hastening the development of a revolutionary situation, as part of preparing people to be able to make a revolution. I don't think we could have a revolution soon enough. This world is a nightmare for humanity across the planet, for women, for the people in Gaza, for the people who are being, shuffled into mass incarceration, the immigrants crisis on the border. There's so much reason to make a revolution, and the world does not have to be this way. And that does drive me to be very passionate in joining with this fight. And it makes also, I want to invite people, as you hear about Baba Vakian, I'm a follower of him because he's re-envisioned how revolution could be real in this world, including how the fight to liberate women is a core and essential driving part of any revolution worth making. You can go to revcom.us and learn and read his work, Break All the Chains, why this is an actually very essential fight to the fight to emancipate all of humanity. And so I just want to be upfront about that. I don't think that's a weakness. I think it's a great strength to look at this connected to everything that we need to fight to change. And it makes me and others very passionate about joining in this fight for the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, to stop the war on women. And it makes us very passionate about standing shoulder to shoulder with people coming from different perspectives. It's a strength to be able to do that. That's the kind of movement I want to be a part of. That's the kind of revolutionary society I want to bring into being, one where people who come from different perspectives are sharing that, learning that, and standing shoulder to shoulder against what's wrong. And it is so urgent and so critical. I invite you to look at where all this is coming from and how we could really change everything. I also invite you and urge you to get off the sidelines. If you're watching, you're probably not on the sidelines. But get all your friends off the sidelines, and wherever you're at, take a step. Get out of your comfort zone. All of us need to do this, and there are people out there. If we dare to do this, there are people out there waiting for this who don't even know they're waiting for this, and there's people whose lives and futures are on the line, and they don't even understand it yet, and we have to go and wake them up and bring them into this. So I just want to thank everybody who has come out and had the courage to testify tonight. We have a solemn responsibility to that, to the courage they demonstrated, the truth they told, to take this and act accordingly and share it everywhere. So I thank you all for being here. And let's go forward.
In summation, the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride, the point of the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride is setting out to turn the tide on abortion rights, shatter the stigma, and rally a fighting force to stop these attacks right now. We encourage everyone out there and everyone here today and everyone at home watching tonight to join the Freedom Ride physically and virtually. Sign and share the statement, the Forced Motherhood Statement. You can find it on StopPatriarchy.org. Tune in every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. We will be having public hearings every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. I believe on the East Coast it's 8 o'clock. And third, join and protest with us to take the verdict from these people's hearings and take it to the institutions that lead these attacks and support these attacks. And in protesting, we will take coat hangers out to the streets and the names and the faces of women who died from illegal abortions, because we refuse, again, I repeat, we refuse to forget these stories and to forget these women.
Those are some important ways to be part of the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride this month and in this crucial moment. If you have more ideas, if there are other things you would like to do, if you would like to create art, if you would like to perform a poem, if you would like to spread the word in ways that we have not even conceived of, understand that it is going to take you, and it is going to take a lot more than the people in the room tonight, though this is a very important starting place. We are aiming for nothing less than society-wide impact, because that's what's needed. So I'd like to introduce these volunteers who are going to come up and read a statement that I hope everybody in this room's name is on. I hope everybody who's watching at home, you go right now, or in just a minute, to StopPatriarchy.org and join the likes of Bill Ayers, the likes of Kate Adder Vasquez, of Carol Giardina, of Susan Gibson, Lisa Grady, Mary Lou Greenberg, Dorinda Hancock, Shauna Heckert, Ray Hill, Merle Hoffman, Sikivu Hutchinson, Chuck Kaufman, Reverend Tegan, Dan Layton, and many, many, many more. And I hope in this room tonight, you'll join us with the closing line of this statement, which, if you agree, which is, we will resist. Come on. Let's welcome the abortion rights freedom riders back.
Emergency in Texas, stop forced motherhood, abortion on demand and without apology.
If nothing changes, on September 1st, all but 6 abortion clinics in Texas will be closed. There were 46 in 2011.
Women will begin dying from dangerous, illegal abortions. Others will be imprisoned for self-inducing abortions and trapping them in abusive relationships and or driving them into humiliating and dangerous poverty. Rural, poor, immigrant, and women of color will be hardest hit.
Worse, this emergency in Texas is not an isolated problem.
Hundreds of abortion restrictions have been enacted in recent years. 6 states have only 1 abortion clinic left. 8 abortion doctors and staff have been murdered. Countless women have been shamed and humiliated.
Those driving this attack on women's most fundamental rights are deadly serious. They will not stop until all abortions have been criminalized for all women in all circumstances.
This must not be allowed. Forcing women to have children against their will is a form of enslavement.
Courageous people are doing important work to keep abortion available. At the same time, it must be confronted soberly. Much more is needed.
What happens this summer in Texas will affect women everywhere. It is the responsibility of everyone who does not want to see women forced to have children against their will to stand up and fight. Not sometime in the future, but now.
This is a time for courage, for people to defy fear, to shatter silence, and to break their isolation, to refuse to wait for politicians or courts to make our will known, to raise our voices and fill the streets, to make art and wage protest, to defend doctors and assist women, to change hearts and enlighten minds, to engage in acts of militant, nonviolent, direct action, to call forth thousands and soon millions until we have stopped these attacks and defeated this war on women.
We reject the view that a woman's highest purpose is to bear children. Women are full human beings with the moral, ethical, and legal right to decide when and whether to become mothers.
No more women denied the right to dream, the right to live full lives, the right to love, the right to decide for themselves. We will resist.
So we hope that people will stay and get connected. We can talk to each other, get to know each other, and have the kind of conversation that's needed about how to go forward. And we hope right now, those folks at home that are watching, go straight to StopPatriarchy.org, unless you're already there watching this live stream. And share with your friends. Tweet out about this people's hearing. Share quotes, share pictures, invite people next time. Organize right now. Start thinking about where are you going to hold a webcast viewing next Wednesday when the Abortion Rights Freedom Ride goes to San Antonio. Send us a message about what you thought. Send a story for the people's hearings. You get the picture. There's a lot of ways to get involved. Let's take an hour. Let's do it now. Thank you.